Well, good evening and welcome to Belta Valley, and you can see our set behind us is the International Space Station, and my guest here to my right is none other than Kerry Reynolds,
Hi.
a resident of Northbridge,
Yes, sir.
not originally from Northbridge.
No, originally I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, this is an interesting guy to talk with, and you're going to find out why. Because one thing, he's the son of the guy who made this show possible. And I'll tell you how. His father came up with the concept of cable television
Yes. Yep.
back in 1940s?
1954.
54,
Yes, sir.
1954.
Yes, sir. He wasn't the one that actually developed cable TV, but he was one of the ones that started
He
it.
came up with the
Yep.
concept.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I know this is true because I read an article about it before I met Kerry, and I remember the name Reynolds,
Yes.
of the guy down in Pennsylvania, lived out in the mountains in western Pennsylvania.
Right.
And he's
Yes,
got a
sir.
lot of mountains.
Yes, sir.
And he owned an appliance store,
Yep.
sold TVs, and one of the things you did when you sold TVs, of course, you had a display TV, and people got to see what was on television. I Love Lucy or whatever, and in 1950s, and
You remember them shows?
oh yeah, you had very few you could watch. It wasn't
Oh,
very
yeah.
many channels.
Perry Mason? Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I still watch it. But anyway, the idea was if it came in good and crisp and clear, that was, that's a good TV. I'd like to
Yep.
buy that set. Well, part of the problem they had was very poor reception because of the mountains.
Right. Yes, sir.
And he came up with the idea of putting an antenna on the top of the mountain,
Put a tower up there.
a
Yep.
tower, and then running the wire down to his store
Yep.
and hook it to his TV.
Yep.
And what happens, the customer, I don't get that reception at home. Well, no, I got this tower up here. And guys, well, how do I get into that? And
Well, he
He went
asked
from
Dad, he
there.
said, how much would you charge me to hook onto that? He said, I could have it over my place. Dad said, $3. Dad kept the $3 line rent from 1954 until 1976 when he sold it to my older brother.
wouldn't you love to have that cable bill? $3 a month.
$3.50 for a hookup and $3 a month for the cable. Yeah. But
Of course,
we ended up with 5 towns. There was Sandy Lake, Stoneboro, Cockerton, Utica, and Polk.
wow.
And there was 12 in my family. There was a brother between me and my older brother passed away at 2 weeks with pneumonia back in the 40s. And of course, back then they didn't have the technology they got today.
No, you didn't have the antibiotics.
So that left 6 boys and 6 girls. There was an even dozen.
Wow.
And us boys helped Dad when we needed out on the line, or we took care of the farm. We had a 75-acre farm. And,
On top of the store.
on top of that, yes.
But he also did preaching.
Yes, he was an ordained minister.
Ordained
And
minister.
every one of us kids knew how to play an instrument.
I'd love to have, I wish I could have your father on the show. I'm sure he's,
Yeah, he was quite a man. But every one of us kids, of course, we complained to Dad about having to get up in the middle of the night. Middle of the night, I mean 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go milk these cows.
Yeah, cows have to be milked early.
So Dad said, "I'll make you a deal." He said, "I'll sell the cows, but we'll take the money from the cows and buy a musical instrument, and you have to learn how to play it." Anything, Dad, just get rid of them cows, So he did. And my older brother got a guitar. I got a bass guitar. My younger brother got an accordion. We learned how to play. And we used to go around to different radio or to churches and stuff as a family. We used to do, yeah. I've got all of our songs that we ever did, all as a family. And of course, as the kids got older, they started joining, Yeah. But I started playing the bass when I was 10.
Wow.
And I still play guitar. I went from a bass guitar to a 6-string
Yeah.
to a 12-string
Whoa.
to a banjo. And my older brother gave me a pedal steel that I've been fooling with for the last 2 or 3 years.
I'll be that.
So
And it's different playing every one of those.
oh yes, Yes,
there's a
the
big
five-string
difference.
banjo you do with your fingers, you know.
Yeah,
And the same way with the steel. The steel has a bar that and then you've got different pedals that you
Right.
gotta, and it's something interesting, but um, I got, uh, I got 3 or 4 songs down pretty good on it, and, but the wife said, well, you need to start cutting down on the noise, you know. So I went ahead, I used to have an amateur radio license back in the 80s, and I figured, you know, it'd be nice to get that back. And so it seems that we're in lockdown and then you really can't do anything.
yeah.
And I had 2 reservations set up for one at Salisbury and one at Scusset. And in fact, I had a job lined up at Salisbury as a camping host in September. And then this COVID hit and they canceled everything. So,
Oh, I know.
and well, they not only canceled that, but of course they closed the campgrounds and all
right.
that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It was
we
a
didn't
tough-
get
it
a
was
chance
tough
to take
summer
the
for everybody.
RV out. So, but anyway, we went ahead. I figured, well, you know, it'd be nice to get the amateur radio license back because I've been told, you know, that everything was going digital.
Yes.
And so I did. I went ahead. And all I had to do was take the tech license exam, and they gave me back my general. And of course, the general, it's got a whole wide range of stuff that you can do with it. But the technician is like you get your foot in the door, you know, and
Yeah.
you can use these little radios, and you can use portions of the HF, but just on CW. Oh, excuse me. And now CW used to be a requirement for the amateur license, but it's no longer required. And so I went ahead, I got my technician class, and then they gave me my general. And well, I got to talking on FT8, which is a digital mode on the HF. And I contacted this guy in Utah, and his call letters were KJ2U. When I looked up his call on the QRZ page, it was Ken Jennings. He said, no, he said, I'm not the Ken Jennings from Jeopardy. He said, but I'm his dad.
Oh, I'll be done.
But the KJ to you was, you know, Ken Jennings to you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
But that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
That was all right.
Yeah, of course, everything west of the Mississippi, you have a K on your license.
No, the
Well, KDKA was the exception.
KDKA was the Channel 2 out of Pittsburgh.
Right, but the exception there. I know I took broadcasting.
Yeah,
And the KDKA came out because that was the first actual radio station, commercial
yes.
radio station.
And then it changed to TV.
Right,
Right.
but in fact, if people had crystal sets back in the 20s, KDKA is who they picked up.
Yep. And the old crystals, you could take a lead pencil and open the crystal up, and by adding lead to it or taking it away, you could change the frequency of that crystal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, when the FCC finally came about, they designated everybody east of the Mississippi would start with W, and everybody west would start with K.
Yeah. Yep.
But
And
KDKA kept its call letters.
Yep. But when they changed that, then WIICU, Channel 4 out of Pittsburgh,
Yep.
and then I can't think of the one out of Johnstown, Channel 6. I can't remember it now.
But the station call letters, they would get the call letters set up according to who they were.
Right. Yes, sir.
You know.
And Westinghouse was a big part of that.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why Westinghouse owned locally WBZ,
Yep.
Westinghouse Broadcasting.
Right.
And then they also had WBZ 2 and 1. It was 1, 2 was out of Springfield.
Yep. You know, I believe I told you wrong. WIICU is Channel 11.
Yeah.
WATE or something like that is Channel 4. But they're all out of Pittsburgh.
Right.
And then Channel 12 was out of Erie.
Yeah.
And But that's why I said, Dad, when a customer would trade in a TV or something, or if it was beyond repair or something, Dad would take the UHF channel tuners out
Yep.
of those old TVs. And that's what he used to make his converter with. And channel 21 and 27 used to be out of Youngstown, Ohio. And what he would do is take those UHF tuners and tune them to those channels and then convert it to channel 6 or 7. So if you change your TV channel to 6, you watch channel 21 out of Youngstown.
Right. Now,
That was
he
his
would
first
set
converters.
those converters in every house.
Yes. No. All those converters was at the tower.
Oh,
Yes, all the converters and everything was at the towers, and then what came down from the tower was one trunk line.
oh, okay.
So all you had to do was hook it to the VH portion of your TV.
So he amplified it at the tower as well.
He'd amplify it at the tower and run it down to the towns, and all of his converters, all of the amplifiers and everything was at the
Now,
tower.
did he have to get an FCC license to do all that?
Not for that, no. Not for, because see, he wasn't broadcasting anything.
He was only receiving.
Right,
Oh, okay. Today, though, it'd be regulated.
right. Yeah, it's, I think they started in the 70s, where they started
Yeah,
because,
well, commercial cable got
Yeah.
bigger in the 70s. It was more so in the cities.
right, yeah, and
and it was the 80s when they started expanding outward.
that's when satellite TV started is in the 70s and stuff. But what they did is they found out that the megahertz between channel 6 and channel 7 was so far apart. What they did was put those channels in between them,
Right.
and that's where they get channel 102, channel 120, and so forth. And that's where they put them, in that spectrum. And if you have a cable-ready TV, it goes right through the same thing as what we had before, but we got more channels.
Right. Well, they're able to. The technology is allowed for more space,
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
so you can get more channels in a smaller area,
Yeah.
and that's changed everything. I mean,
Right.
Now you got more broadcast bands than you ever had,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and including over the air.
Dad,
No,
though.
if you remember the CB era.
Oh yes.
That's when we went with. Originally was 40 channels.
Yeah. Well, no. Originally it was 11.
11.
Yeah.
23, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then they expanded up.
It all depended on how many crystals you had.
Yeah, but
'Cause
I mean, but the FCC allowed for more channels.
Right. But actually, the CB channel or the CB band was actually owned by the ARL. That was 11 meters, and it got so overcrowded and so
Oh, it got ridiculous.
that they just said you can have it,
Yeah.
and that's on the 27 megahertz. Yeah, and
But now no one has CBs anymore, except
no,
the truck drivers.
truck drivers you still got it, but
Yep.
back in the CB area, everybody had it.
Oh, I know.
Just,
God, it was.
but
I was a salesman. I had to have one. I mean,
oh sure, yeah,
Everyone, but then I think cell phones made that extinct.
yes, and the same way that cell phones is the same thing to photography. You know,
Yes.
I mean, why would you need a camera now? You got the phone.
Everybody's got a phone now.
Sure.
And everybody's got a
I
camera.
met a lady yesterday. She come up. The one storm that we had come through loosened a pole up there at our place, and it was leaning. I thought it was going to come down on top of the RV, but it had an anchor line off. When they replaced the pole, it come to find out Verizon has one guideline going to it, but the
National
electric
Grid has
company
the
has the other one. So they could only put up theirs. They couldn't touch the one
Yep.
from Verizon. So they rolled it up along the fence, and I looked out, and there's this lady taking a picture of this cable. I said, so I went out. I said, "Ma'am," I said, "That's not mine." I said, "It belongs to Verizon." I said, "They just haven't been here." "Oh no," she said, "I'm a photographer." She said, "I'm taking pictures of it." But I don't know, Harry, how many people I've had stop in the parking lot out here. They'll see me with this antenna sticking out,
Yes, yes.
wanting to know if I'm building a still or what am I doing.
Yeah, but you're communicating with the satellites.
Satellites, right? Yeah,
And with the space station.
I got these 3 in today, like I said, And of course, there's a picture of the satellite there.
Yeah, same
But-
picture we have right up here.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, the International
And
Space
then,
Station.
but like I was saying, all walks of life do this. There's this one here. Used to work for NASA.
Right.
He's retired now. If you bring up his page on QRZ, he's sitting in one of the space stations, or well, the spacecraft, the Discovery. Before
Oh.
they dismantled it and took
Yeah.
it, to the Smithsonian, he was sitting in it. They took a picture of him with it. But you meet all kind of people on here. The little fella I talked to day before Tuesday, Gabriel, down in Puerto Rico. They're still trying to get stuff back together from that, that
Oh, I know.
devastation they was through.
Yeah,
But it's fun to talk to people like that, and of course we're not allowed to talk about politics. We ain't allowed to badmouth anybody.
Right.
You have a conversation with them, and I mean, wish them well, wish the family whatever, but it's a whole different ball game from the CB era. I mean, you don't. And of course, we still get together. Like I said, these repeater clubs. We'll get together, have a coffee, or we'll get together, have a breakfast. Together, we'll get together sometime, have a field day. See how far you can talk on just a quarter of a watt. It's just something different.
Yeah, the ham operators have always been there when there was an emergency situation.
Yes.
'Cause a lot of times they were the only form of communication.
Right. Well, that's what I say when that Hurricane Hugo hit in '87. I was just newly licensed as a technician, and I was nervous because I was in charge of one of the shelters, and it had the governor of South Carolina on a radio no bigger than this. And I was telling them how many people I had in my shelter so they could bring over blankets and food and,
Right.
water or whatever.
Yeah, because all
And
communications down.
all the
all
communication
land
were down.
communications.
But not only when Hurricane Hugo hit, it hit in Georgetown, which was about 30 miles south of Myrtle Beach. And Myrtle Beach is where I was at. I was inland around Conway. But actually what we got was a slap in the face from it spinning.
Right.
And when it hit, it set off 7 tornadoes up through South Carolina.
Well, I remember driving down to Florida after, and you could see a SWAT
Yep.
from 95
Yes, sir.
where it went through it, just wiped everything out.
But there's different things that the amateur radio operator they do. I've helped quite a couple times. We had a net on 40 meters that once I got my general class, I was in Tucson when I got my general class, and this one group of guys, we had a net that we'd get on in the evenings just visit. One guy was
Yep.
in California, one was in Texas, one was in Nevada, and we just get on the radio and talk and find out, how's it going today, and I heard this faint call way in the distance. We had a storm brewing up down in the Gulf. And I broke to the gentleman that was in charge of the net, and I said, Dave, do you hear that guy? And he said, no. And I said, well, let me pick him up. So I called for him. Well, the guy come back to him. He wanted me to make a phone call for him to call his family to let them know that they were fine, to give them a peace of mind,
Yeah.
So I did that for him, and it's
Yeah, that was
it's
another
free
thing that
service.
ham operators were able to do, is get word out to family members that everyone was all right.
Yes,
And-
yeah. And another time I was in Florida, and we had a hurricane coming up the East Coast. NASA was relaying to Houston the coordinates on that hurricane. Well, they lost their communication. They lost the signal. So I relayed for them. From my station, I could hear them both. And I called in and I said, I can relay the coordinates. He said, yes, please. And I did. But it was just to help out,
Right.
any way we can.
But yeah, today, I can say, you're actually bouncing your signals off satellites now.
Yes. Well, we're not actually bouncing them off as we're hitting the satellites.
Well, you're repeating
But,
off.
yeah, repeating off the repeaters in there. The satellites, as you can see on these antennas here, there's one for VHF, one for UHF. Well, you transmit up on a VHF, it'll duplex it over to the other one, and it comes out on VHF, with the opposite of what you transmit to.
Right.
But now they do have a moon bounce, where you bounce a signal off the moon
Oh.
and talk to different people through it.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, it would be a different type of an antenna. I believe it's a circular type.
Oh.
But like I said, amateur radio it's as in-depth as you want to get it. I mean,
But it used to be you bounced off the ionosphere.
right. And we still do. The HF portion. Now, I keep referring to the HF. Now, it's a radio like this.
Yeah.
That's an HF radio.
Okay. Is that an AM?
No, the AM, we did away with the AM. AM is using the full spectrum of the bandwidth.
Oh, okay.
So most of it's sideband, or it's FM,
Yeah.
or it's CW. Because there's
okay.
a lot of people that love CW. Even though it's not a requirement, they love to send and receive CW. You can actually talk further on CW than you can with the voice. Yeah.
Most people out there, when you're talking CW, think country and western.
CW, I love country western. Matter of fact, that's all I've ever played. But
But I remember
CW is Morse code.
In the military,
That's-
we used sideband.
Right. Yeah, single sideband, and what
Yeah.
it's doing is, say if you have a bandwidth like this, and you have a full one, that's AM, amplitude modulation. All right, sideband, you either have the upper half or you have the lower half.
Right, and the signal it travels much fast.
It travels much faster and it takes less power.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And but what's fascinating about it is that it doesn't take that much to get it going. You know, like I said, you can still get the 1,000 watt or 5,000 watt linears, you know, and stuff. It all depends, you know.
Right.
Like myself, I just wanted to be in a little quiet room, you know, not bothering anybody. So I do have an HF radio. I've got a 6-band vertical. It'll cover all the frequencies that I'm allocated to work on. Then I've got what they call a horse fence dipole. Now what that is, it's like a horse fence is like braided, real fine braided steel wire, and it goes around my property, but it's like 10 feet off the ground, and I use that for just a different polarity from my vertical. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I've talked to, like I said, 86 countries using it. Between it and my vertical, I've contacted about 86 countries.
That's another thing with ham operators. You have them all. It's not just in the United States. They're all over the world.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of even
isn't
like
English the standard language for ham operators?
No, what I've been using is the digital, and the digital is an international. So in other words, if I hit an A on my keyboard, it's an A in their language, and it doesn't matter what language it is.
So you're sending it in code?
Right. Well, it's not actually a code. It's a program that we use, and it's translated into their, you know.
Oh, okay. So you're using a computer program.
Oh, yes. It's through a computer program.
Oh, boy.
And but it's an international language, so that when I hit an A here, it's an A in their language.
And they hear it.
And they hear
It's
it.
audio.
Yep. Well, it comes up. It's an audio, but yet it has to go through their program, and
Right.
it comes up in a display.
Oh,
Do
I
you
see.
remember back? You were saying you remember the military. Okay. Do you remember the RTTY? Had the big teletype machines.
Oh, okay. Yes. We have
Basically
one
the
now.
same thing. When you would type something on there, it would come
Right.
out on the other end.
Right.
Okay? Basically the same thing.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yep. In fact, my first RTTY program, or the radio that I had, machine was one of those old teletype ribbons. And I used to make ribbons up, you know, with the brag thing, you know, what
Yeah.
equipment I had, what I was running, how many watts, you know. And that's what I would use. I would put that tape through, and it would automatically send it for me.
Back then, that thing was huge. That took up the whole back of a truck.
Oh yeah, it was Oh, probably 3 or 4 like this here.
Yeah.
Had a keyboard on it and they were sat there.
Right. But today, with computer software, you can do it on a cell phone.
Oh, you can do it. Yeah. Matter of fact, my cell phone, I didn't bring it with me. I'm sorry, but it's got an app on it called Heavens Above. I bring that up and tell them where the satellites are.
Huh.
Not only that, tell them what direction it is and how many degrees it is off of.
Yeah, if they see you out here in the parking lot, what you're doing is you're actually communicating with the satellite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But that satellite is traveling about 2,200 miles an hour. So when it comes up over here in the south, by the time it gets over there, only 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes is elapsed. And you haven't got but just that little small window to make a contact.
Wow.
And there's a lot of people trying, but if you're lucky enough to get through, you make all kind of contacts with
Now,
them.
what are these satellites up there? Who put these up?
Different people put them up. Verizon puts them up. Let's see. General Electric puts some up.
What was their purpose? They must have a use for it.
A lot of schools and colleges will put them up for experiments. Not only for communications, but for other experiments too.
Right.
I'm sure you heard they got a sample from that meteor. It's supposed to be over some billion years old.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how they do it.
Well, you think about it. You go back to a Sputnik in 1950s.
Mhm.
I mean, I was a little kid and watching it go over, and remember it made the beep beep beep,
Yep.
and people said, "Well, what's the purpose of this thing?"
That's a beacon.
Yeah.
And that's how they track it.
Right, but the thing is, it didn't do anything else. It was
No.
The idea was, could you put something in orbit?
Right.
That was what they were trying to do back then.
Well, then they went from that to the orbit to where it would be stationary.
Right.
So then
Geophysical orbit.
that's when they put up the C bands and the K bands
Yes.
for cable TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, prior to that, you had Telstar.
Telstar.
That was a big
yes.
advance. I
That
remember,
was a big thing in the 60s.
I remember that,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
remember watching it on TV, where they showed the first live broadcast from Europe,
Yeah.
from France, and that was quite the thing. And
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't that great.
That was a big deal.
It wasn't that great a picture, but
Elvis Presley did one from Hawaii.
Hawaii,
you
yes,
remember? And
yes.
it was through the satellites.
through
Yeah.
satellite. But
Yeah.
then it got more advanced, and
Yeah.
Telstar was early.
Telstar was the very first one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was early, and it wasn't a great picture, but it was amazing.
But it's through these people, that they continued
Yeah,
to explore with it, and that's how they learned. They built on it.
and when I was in Europe in the late '60s, you couldn't call home. You'd have to wait for a couple of hours to get an overseas line.
Right. Yes.
You'd go down and try to get a phone call through, but you'd have to
Yeah.
wait for 2 hours to get a line.
Yeah.
Now, I can take my cell phone, and you give me the phone number of anybody anywhere in the world, I can call them direct.
Sure. Yes, sir. But
And that's because of the satellites.
in the 60s, I remember my oldest brother was stationed in Germany,
Yep.
and he wanted to call home. And I remember my mother and dad was on the phone with him, and every time that they would get done talking, they'd have to say over.
Yes.
Well, then, when Buzz got done talking, my brother, when he would get done talking, he'd have to say over. Well, what that did is give the amateur radio operator time to flip his.
Just flip,
Yeah.
to flip the mic.
Yep. So he sent it from transmit to receive.
Yes.
The two ham operators was the ones that was doing telephone.
Yeah, that's the only way you could do without using the international line,
Right.
which went
Now-
under the ocean.
Myself, that RTTY that I had there, that teletype, I used to handle traffic for the Navy. Guys that were stationed on the ships.
Oh yeah.
They wanted to send a message back home. His teletype operator would send the message out. I would get the message and I'd send it on. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that was quite common where they.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
we were talking earlier about the development of the SOS signal,
Right. Yes.
and the very first time was used in 1912
Yep. April 1912 on the Titanic.
from the Titanic.
Yes.
The radio operator in Titanic sent out an SOS.
Right. And that was the first time the International Morse Code was sent.
Yes.
Well, not that it was sent, but it was the first time that it was used as a distress.
Yeah. Well, Morse code was developed by Samuel Morse,
Samuel Morse, yes.
so that he could send messages over a wire.
Actually, it was because his wife was sick. He was at a convention, I'm wanting to say down in Washington, found out his wife was ill, and he couldn't get a message to her. And he said that'll never happen again. So he developed this system to where he could, and
By
she was in Connecticut.
Yeah, so you could send signals, but we hadn't developed a wire that could carry a voice.
Right.
That would come later on.
Yeah.
Alexander Graham Bell, and right in
Right.
Boston.
Yep.
That
But
was until 1876.
but
But Samuel Morse was able, but then Morse code was sent over wire.
right.
But then Marconi came up with the radio transmission. Actually, I heard Tesla came up with the idea first,
Hmm.
but he never moved on it.
Right.
Or Marconi did. But then now we can send messages over the air. Once again, they used Morse code because you couldn't send a strong signal
Right.
with voice.
Yes.
We had technology had developed into
Yeah.
that.
When I was in Florida, I run across a group of guys that was called the Quarter Watt Club, and that's all they ran was a quarter of a watt, but it was Morse code.
Yeah, yeah. You
And-
don't need much with Morse
No,
code.
no, and it's like putting a pin through a piece of paper. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll go.
And, I remember as a kid playing around with a shortwave radio receiver, and you go up and down a dial and you hear. I could never read that.
Well, but actually, the Morse code used to be done with a spark, and it was between the plate, and I wanted to say the cathode, no, the plate and the grid of the tube to send the oscillation, and I mean that thing would fire a spark, and boy, it would knock you on your tan, if you got a hold of it, and. So I used to tease the guys, I said, that's why all them old ham operators had that afros. But now they say they've done away with it. Now everything's solid state. But if anybody was
and they still
wanting-
use Morse code.
Excuse me?
You still use Morse code.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And they share it down on the frequencies along with the FT8, the FT4, which is the digital stuff
Yeah.
that I was telling you about, RTTY, SK31, they're all down in it. And actually, Morse code you can send and receive on any band, any portion of the band that you want. As long as somebody's receiving it,
Yeah.
you're welcome to send it to. You don't. The allocations are recommendations, okay? But if you need to get a message out, you can use any portion of the band you want, except as long as you have a license for it. Now, I don't want to, like if I'm at the end of my frequency allocations, I can't go into the extra class band and send. I cannot. That's you're not allowed.
Well,
to do
here
that.
again now, a ham operator's radio license today doesn't require Morse code.
No,
At
no.
one point it did,
Yes, it did at one time. Yes.
but now, if you want to get into the Morse code bands, you have to know your Morse code.
Well, if you would get your technician class, like I said, all it is 35 written words, or written exam. You can even practice the thing for free online at hamstudy.org. You look it up, you read the questions, after a while you take a practice exam. if you want, you can go on down there, but you need your technician class in order to
Right.
talk to them.
But they've really loosened up the rules over the years.
Yes, they have. Yes.
I know at one point, if you went into radio, you had to have a radio broadcaster's license
Right. Yes.
if you worked in radio.
Yeah.
'Cause you had to know what the VU meters and
Yeah.
other technical things.
I when I first got into it, I was with a ham radio club or CB radio club. I'm sorry, and we get together and sit around and a fire, and we started joking about getting our license with the amateur radio. So we decided to do that. So at that time, you could get down to Radio Shack in Gordon West, WB6NOA, out of California. Used to sell these classes, and it showed you how to do Morse code. So I went down to Radio Shack, and I was going to get the one for the novice. And you only needed 5 words a minute. That's a piece of cake. And this little fella come up to me and he says, "You're going to get your amateur license?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to try." He said, "Well, I've been having a problem with one of my radios." He said, "I'm a ham operator." I said, "Okay." Well, I started liking the little fella. He was a nice guy, I said, "Well, I can come over." I said, "I work down at this one TV shop." I said, "I can come over and see if I can give you a hand." He said, "Sure." So I went over and there he had burned his choke out in this one transmitter. It was an old Viking transmitter. He said, "I'll tell you what I'll do." He said, "I'll make you a deal." He said, "You fix that transmitter right there for me, and I'll give you that radio." Well, that radio would hit with lightning, and it wouldn't no longer transmit, but you could still receive on it. It was an old Yaesu FT101B. I said, "Well, okay." So I took the transmitter home with me, and this friend of mine had some old parts out in his shed out there. I said, "Tim," I said, "you got a choke, that would fit this?" He says, "Yeah." So I sat down, we wired the thing in, and I took it back to the fellow. He said, "Well, let's see if it'll work." And he set the thing up and hooked the receiver up. Harry, he took off on that code like, oh my gosh. He said, "Now you tell me if I make a mistake." I said, "Yeah, right."
I know.
Come to find out, he used to be in the Air Force, and he could send and receive Morse code off of 5 radios at the same time and hand messages off to runners while he was copying these codes.
Those guys amaze me.
Oh, man.
I served with a guy who was in Air Force, and he was a code interpreter.
Yeah. Well, boy, he
And,
was good. I mean, gee whiz.
He was stationed up in Alaska, and his job was listening to the Soviets.
Yeah.
And he said, I could tell when they changed operators,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody was different.
And have a different fist.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
he-
the rhythm will change.
Yeah.
When I took my general in '93, I was copying and sending at 18 words a minute, but I just couldn't get over. There's a rhythm between 18 to 20, and that's where the rhythm changes to it, and I just couldn't get that. But I could pass the general class, which required 13 words a minute.
Right.
That wasn't no problem. But I sat down and was listening to code the other day. I said, "Oh." I don't know how fast they were going, but I swear
I remember going by a building down on Dix where they had a bunch of guys in there learning code.
Yeah.
And I'm standing outside the window and hear these guys, and they're writing down. How the hell they do that?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't tell a dash from a dot.
After a while, it just comes second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they told me.
Yeah. And that's what I found out when I was doing the 13, 14 words a minute. You hear it and you keep practicing it over in your mind. Even when you're driving down the road, you see a sign. And what would that be in Morse code?
Oh my God.
Your wife, she looks at you and says, "What are you doing?" But anyway, it's an amazing hobby. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean, now, if there's anybody that would like to get into it, all they have to do is contact me. Send me an email or something. Kerry192 at yahoo.com.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty easy.
Sure.
Kerry192
I-
at yahoo.com.
And I know that we're in lockdown and all this stuff, so we can get on. They have an apparatus called Zoom now, where you can bring it up on the computer to be one-on-one.
Yep.
And I'll help anybody get their technician or even the general. The technician's the easiest one to
You
get.
find many kids getting into it?
Excuse me?
You find many young people getting into it?
There's a little fella that belongs to the one repeater club. I think he's 9. He just earned a merit badge from the Boy Scouts
Yes.
for doing Morse code.
Oh, okay. I didn't know Boy
Yeah.
Scouts were still
And he
doing Morse
he
code.
just passed a general class. Yeah,
I'll be darned.
yeah. A lot of young kids are in it.
At one time, that was required to advance in rank.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they dropped it because it's not used as much anymore.
Right. The Morse code isn't used that much, but he did earn his badge for it, and he was on. We have a meeting that's on Zoom, and there's 24, 25 of us on there at a time. You know.
Yeah, you have to do it on Zoom now.
Yeah, and it's but you can one-on-one, or you can put 2 or 3 people in at the same time, and if we get enough people that want to try it, I'll be more than glad to help. I've got all kind of stuff that I can help with to get people going with it, and if they want to
And now
come down,
it's fairly inexpensive to get into it now.
no, this $30.
Yeah.
$30. The antenna that I use for talking to the antenna or the satellites, it was $98, but that covers both bands.
Right.
And not only will it do the satellite, but it'll also, if I want to put it up in my yard and hit the other repeaters, I can do that also.
We're talking, $130, and you're into the business. I mean, that's that's really inexpensive today.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, years ago, you had to have the big AM sets.
Oh yeah, yeah. You had to have the big AM sets. You had to have the linear amplifiers. You had to have towers.
Towers outside, and if you went too high, you had to have a red light on top. And
Right. Yes. Every 200 feet.
yeah, then you
Yeah.
had to be licensed. And
Had to have a license and everything. Yep. But the way it is now, you do have to wait till your call is posted on the FCC website before you're allowed to transmit.
uh-huh.
But that's the only class that you have to wait. If you was to upgrade to the general, as soon as you pass it and you have your certificate, you can operate on the general class, but just put temporary AG at the end of your call until it appears on the FCC license board. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Like I said, this here was from Barnes & Noble, and I'm sure they have the upgraded one now. This extra class is expired on this. But I'm sure that Barnes & Noble would have the newest one. But this one covers the technician and general. And I think it's 19 or 20 bucks.
Let's get a little bit about yourself. You're out of Pennsylvania. How'd you end up here in Northbridge?
I was delivering a load of sausage at Sara Lee's in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
I was going to say, it's not around here.
No, from Wisconsin. And
Oh, so you
the
were an
company...
over the road driver.
Yes, I used to be an over-the-road driver. I used to pull doubles down to North Bergen across the GW, and no, I'm not suicidal. No. Some people thought that, pulling double trailers across the
across
GW.
the GW. I mean,
But,
going across the GW in a car is suicide.
when I met my wife, I quit going over the road. I started pulling local, so I pulled for Keystone out of Auburn. And so anyway, the company I drove for didn't allow us to unload our truck. We had to be in the truck resting to go to our next load. So we'd hire somebody to unload the truck for us.
Oh,
We stayed inside. Well, heck, I just come off a 10-hour break, so I wasn't really sleepy. So I got my laptop out, and I piggybacked on their Wi-Fi and get onto a poker site. They had these free poker games on the internet. And so I just picked a random table and sat down and started playing poker with these people. And I told them, I said, if I happen to disappear, it's because I had to move my truck away from the dock. And this one lady said, well, how are you out in your truck and on the internet too at the same time? Because back in 2005, that was unheard
Yeah, that
of.
was not
Yeah.
uncommon. That was very uncommon. You didn't
So
pick up-
I explained to her what I was doing, and well, the company I drove for also had a terminal down in North Bergen, down in New Jersey. So her and I got to be poker players and friends and stuff, and I told her, I said, I've got a layover. I had a load of chicken from Mississippi going to the Bronx to a Chinese warehouse for the Chinese
yeah.
chain. I said, I can't deliver it until Tuesday. I said, would you care to come down to North Bergen and we'll go out for supper? She said, sure. So she came down, we went out for supper, and well, come to find out she was a school teacher here in Worcester.
Oh,
And she, well, I didn't have anything commitment there in Pennsylvania, so I moved here instead of her relocating.
oh, I'll be down.
And but unfortunately, about a year before she was going to retire, we was going to take the RV out and go travel and stuff. A year before she went to retire, she had a stroke, and
Oh,
so that kind of limited our traveling. I mean, we still take the RV out, but she taught up at Worcester for 22, 23 years, and but she's doing pretty good. She's getting around pretty good.
is she from Northbridge?
Yes, she lives right up here. She was born and raised here,
Oh,
and her whole family lives right here on the block. You know.
oh,
You probably noticed here, this lady in the corner here, she had yard sales all the time.
yes.
That's her daughter.
Oh, I'll be
And she takes the profits that she gets from that yard sales and stuff.
Yeah.
She donates that to the cancer fund for kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
that's really a lot of good people
And
around.
but my wife taught third and fourth special ed.
Oh,
And in 2010, I couldn't pass the DOT physical because of my service-related injury.
yeah.
So VA put me in photo college, and I got a degree in photography. And I figured, well, when she retired, we'll take the RV out. I love doing waterfalls and,
Yeah.
landscape stuff. And so, but, I mean, she's getting around pretty good. We still take the RV out to the local stuff, but we don't
Yeah.
travel like we used to, And,
Yeah, not like you're playing. You would have probably hit the whole country.
but once in a while, we take it back to Pennsylvania, where I was from.
Yeah.
And I go back and visit my brothers. And I have one sister left now, and she lives down in Hershey down there.
Oh, okay.
So I would take my two nieces with me from here, and I'd go back to up around Sandy Lake where Dad had the
Yeah.
cable. And they have a place up there called Lake Wilhelm now. It's a big, humongous reservoir. It's a lake. Good bass fishing. And we'll go up there and spend a week there, and then we'll go down to Hershey and spend a week down there to visit my sister. And when I do that, then my two nieces from here get to go over to Hershey Park, because my two
Yes.
nieces from my sister they work over there.
Oh,
So they get in for nothing.
oh.
So it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, Hershey's quite a little town.
Yes, it is. Amish. And boy,
Yes.
them Amish can bake. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah, I know. It's great cooking.
Oh man. It makes my mouth water just
Yes. So, yeah.
They have an outhouse, an outdoor flea market, like, if you would.
Yes,
And it's
I've
a big
seen that.
building, and all it is Amish, and it's every Saturday. And you get down there, and you walk in, all you smell is fresh bread and cinnamon rolls.
And you have the smorgasbords,
The what?
the big smorgasbord restaurants down there too.
Yeah.
God, you can eat. Well, I don't eat as much as I used to. I got to keep my weight down. But It's so tempting, yeah.
Well, my doctor told me to watch my waist, and I got it right out there where I can see it real good.
Yeah, I have a sister-in-law who lives outside in Delaware, but they're right near Lancaster.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So we've been down there and,
Well, there's a lot of the Amish down there, and they do their farming, but only by horses and stuff.
right,
And I thought it was funny. I seen
no electricity,
huh?
no electricity.
No. And now the Amish, they can have cars, but the cars cannot have anything luxurious in it. It has to be a
So
standard.
because
Has
they
no
were
radio.
using the horse and buggies.
Right. And I went down we was going over to Lancaster for something for my sister. Went by this Amish farm, and they got beautiful farms. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful.
Oh, I know.
And I seen this guy. He had to have been Amish, but he was with his team coming through with his hay baler, and the horses was pulling the hay baler, but the hay baler had a motor up on top of it, and that's how he was baling the hay, is with that small engine. Because usually you have the power takeoff on your tractor.
Yeah.
Well, the horses were pulling the hay baler, and that motor was doing the baling.
For many years, they weren't allowed to do anything mechanical.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're still not. No. And at the farm that we grew up on, at the one property end of it, there was a family of Mennonites that lived there.
Yep.
And we used to go out playing together all the time, go horseback riding or whatever. But them kids would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they never quit until the sun would go down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
But,
it's not that they're required to, it's what they desire.
Right.
It's their religious movement
Yep.
that
Yep.
requires them to be that way.
But they would smoke their own meat, make everything they made everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And but we used to take when us boys were old enough to go out hunting, we'd take a shoulder or a quarter of a leg or something off of a deer.
Yep.
And take it over and have them smoke it for us. Oh my gosh. Oh, have me cure it. Oh my gosh, it was good.
But you grew up a little further to the west, over in the Appalachian area. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was over in Allegheny Mountains and
The
stuff.
Alleghenies, yeah.
The Appalachian are probably down around by,
Well, the Alleghenies are part of the Appalachian chain.
yeah. Yeah, the Appalachian Trail actually goes down through Poughkeepsie and stuff. Down
Yep.
through there. Yeah.
That was my roommate, the guy I was in the Army with, he was the next bunk, was from Hazleton,
Hazleton. Yeah, I see. Okay.
big coal mining area.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of strip mines there where I grew up.
Yep.
We had a lot of coal companies come in. And in fact, when I was younger, that's how we heated our houses, with coal.
Yeah, because it was cheap.
Yeah, it was cheap. But
you go out and gather it
those
yourself.
farmhouses, there were hardly any insulation in them and stuff,
Right.
you know. And,
Yeah.
but us boys, you know, and every Saturday that was our job, to take the ashes out from the. So that gave us another job. You didn't go in and tell Mom you were bored. There was nothing to do.
No, no.
No. You'd be
No,
weeding
you're on
the
a farm.
garden or.
There's always something to do.
Yes. Yeah. The
From-
kids
from
nowadays, you
sun up to
know,
sundown.
kids now they think that milk comes from 7-Eleven. They
Yeah.
don't know. They don't know you got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get down and milk them cows.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And you went to bed when the sun went down because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun though. You know, we hated it back then, but
Well, you look
I
back
wish-
at the more fun times.
yes. Yep. We could get up and leave the house, and Mom didn't have to worry about us till we walked in her door.
Right.
Well, my dad had 2 line trucks. Mom had a Cadillac. All of us kids had a car or something. We had 2 motorcycles. And anytime you could walk, when we had two tanks, two 500-gallon tanks. One had gasoline, one had diesel for the tractors. And at any time you could go in the driveway and sit down in one of those cars and the key was in the ignition.
So you take whatever one you needed.
Yeah. We never allowed to lock stuff up.
No, you didn't.
No.
No.
The gas tanks or the gas, they would push the button in.
Yeah.
We didn't have to lock stuff up,
No, it was a what, different atmosphere back then.
And I shared, when I would go in to visit my grandparents in Mapledale, it was a little small burg. We used to get down, for a nickel, you get a popsicle.
Yep. Oh,
And
I
you
remember
know,
nickel popsicle.
in all these years, I never got cooties off of splitting a popsicle with a friend.
Right. I know, yeah.
Never did.
Break
And
a-
I didn't catch no disease from drinking water out of the water hose either.
Nope.
It was a good time. It was a good
They
time.
were good days, yeah.
But
You
But
swear-
I want to invite anybody that has any questions about that. If they see me out there,
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to stop. I'll be the control operator. If you want to talk, we'll
That'd be great.
pick up the mic and,
Yeah.
and say hi. But
Yeah, you have a schedule when the satellite's coming over, right?
yeah, there's a couple websites. W2YOA.com.
Yeah.
He has a good one. It tells you when the satellites will be up there. You have to type in what satellite you're looking for.
Uh-huh.
And let's see, there's one, KA7 FVV.net. Now what he does is he has a list of satellites that's available in our area. So you could look it up and see when it'd be around here. But usually I have found between 10 to noon is usually about the best time to get.
During the day.
Yeah. And now they're starting, now the space station though is running at night. So you might see me down in your parking lot here when
And that's big enough.
there's nobody breaking, it's just me.
Right. You can actually see it going by.
Yes.
I mean, it's a bright.
It's about
looks like
the
a
same.
star.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of a looking than an airplane, so you can kind of tell the difference.
Right.
But it's booking along now.
Yeah. Yeah, about 18,000 miles per hour.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's and actually it's tumbling at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's rotating.
Yeah. But they don't notice it up there
No,
because there's no
No.
gravity.
no gravity. Yeah. But now, not every satellite up there is manned. Just the space station.
Right.
The other ones are just LEOs, is what we call low Earth orbit satellites.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Now, once they get above that, then they're stationary.
Yeah.
And so far, we haven't put any up there for amateur use. But I would like to kind of look into this moon bounce and see what that was like.
That would be good.
Yeah, just bounce a signal off of the moon and transmit to Japan or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta go.
We got to go. Hey, it was a pleasure being here with you.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna have you
thank
back.
you so
we're gonna have
much.
you back. We'll talk some more.
Not a problem.
All right.
Be more than glad.
Okay. We'll be back next week.